This is the Texas Book Club with R.C. Knipstein of Paradise Forbidden, the November read for our book club. Welcome, R.C. Let's start with telling us a little bit about your book.
Well, thank you, Alan. I appreciate being here. Actually, the book is a story of an epidemic, a calamity in the United States and the world, and how the United States deals with this. And the principal character is a psychiatrist who gets caught up in dealing with the problem and the twists and turns and things that happen in regard to how this affects the nation and his personal life, his family life. So that's basically what it's about.
Now, I understand you're a physician, so how much of this is from your knowledge and your background that you wrote?
Well, a lot of it actually is from my knowledge and background. It's not autobiographical in any way. None of the characters are people that I have seen in my practice, that kind of thing. But a lot of it has to do with my knowledge of the practice of medicine, psychiatry in particular, and some views about that and observations about that.
Now, this is, if I'm correct, kind of like a terrorist type of illness, or is this a little bit different?
Well, no, it's actually where it comes from is not really delineated, but it's not a terrorist type of thing. It's like an epidemic that attacks the population of the United States, and then how the country goes about dealing with it. But it's not a terrorist type of story, but it's an epidemic that's rather unusual, and how to deal with it then becomes rather unusual.
So tell us a little bit about your main character, what he's like, why did you choose him, what made you create him?
Well, when I thought about the story a number of years ago, when it came into my mind, I wanted to write something about my experiences as a physician, as a psychiatrist, and so I came up with a psychiatrist as the protagonist of the story. Again, it's not a biographical kind of thing, but I did want to reflect some of my experiences in the practice of psychiatry, what people are like, what patients are like, what people come to psychiatrists for, that kind of thing, and give some kind of information and hopefully interesting to people about people that go to see a psychiatrist.
Now, does this particular character go through a lot of life changes as he's dealing with this?
Well, yes, he does go through life changes. Certainly it's an unexpected kind of thing. The protagonist is practices general psychiatry. So he's not a specialist of any kind. He's not particularly prominent in the field. He hasn't written any books or papers or that sort of thing. He's kind of an in the trenches type of a doctor that sees patients each day, but yet he's caught up in the story in that he's asked to become a member of a committee formed by a congressman in Washington for the medical community and the psychiatric community to deal with the crisis that develops. And that's how he gets caught up into this.
What are you hoping a reader gets from this particular story?
Well, I hope a person would be interested in the story itself. I would hope that people would maybe understand something about the nature of man, if you will. I know that's kind of heady maybe, but how people behave, how people respond to crises. One of the things that I've learned over the years in my practice, I'm retired now, is that you don't really know people until they're under pressure of some kind. And the story brings to bear a great deal of pressure on individuals, families, and ultimately the nation and the human race, if you will.
Now, this is your second book, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your first book is Stain of Blood.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Stain of Blood is a family saga, a family story that goes back or covers a Texas family through 3 generations. The first thing that I wrote, as I mentioned, I'm retired as of 2012. And I always had an interest in writing, but never had written anything until I actually retired. The first thing I wrote was a story about some of my experiences in a motorcycle club. I'm a member of a motorcycle club. And one of the characters it's a short novel that I wrote. One of the characters was a young woman who came from a very wealthy, prominent Fort Worth family. And so the idea I got was maybe it would be interesting to go back in her family's development and history and see where their wealth came from, where their prominence came from. And so that's where I got the idea originally. So it's the story of a couple, actually, starting about 1920 and then extends through 3 generations of the family up until the, I guess, middle or early 1970s. And all the things that happened then. There's a lot of mystery, intrigue, murder, mayhem. So a lot of things happen in those 3 generations.
So you have ideas and stories you want to tell. Do you have another book coming out or being written?
Yes, I've started on another novel, my 3rd one, and I'm into it 13,000 words or so, and it's more of a traditional murder mystery. It takes place here in Arlington, where I live. It's about a police detective and his working on a particularly interesting murder case.
Is there anything you'd like to share with our viewers?
Or the characters in my books are people that you and I might meet on the street. That's why I have. That's why how I would characterize my stories. People who deal with things that come along in life and how they deal with them. But the main focus, I think, is the characters in my stories, what people are like, why they do what they do, interesting things, good things, bad things that people do. And just the fact that since I've started writing, I found it extremely interesting and very stimulating and surprising in some ways.
Surprising how?
Well, I didn't realize it was going to be so interesting, for one thing, and then when I sit down to write, sometimes I'll have an idea in my mind about where I want a chapter to go or an incident to go in a story, and then sometimes it will kind of go in a different direction than I anticipated at the outset, which really surprised me. Another thing that surprised me is that writing a story or writing about people brings up a lot of emotions in me that maybe have been there for a long time but have been dormant, so to speak. And the fact that I can get very emotional and identify with my characters, and that's been a very interesting thing as well.
So very therapeutic?
Yes, I would think so. It's cathartic, therapeutic in a way, and just gives me a good feeling.